I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage Chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. Welcome to Chairwaves. My guest today is Cindy Cornell, who is joining us from beautiful Connecticut. This is a nice time of year to be in Connecticut, by the way. You guys get all the colors and stuff.
We do have the colors. I actually had a lovely trip to Rhode Island on the weekend, so I was able to enjoy them along a drive as well.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So from beautiful Connecticut, she is the chair of a CE group. Welcome, Cindy.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Eric.
Excellent. So first of all, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up, I think that you're the first person that's been on this podcast that is a competitive boat racer.
I can't say that I am, but I do, in fact, spend a lot of time thinking about boats and on boats. That's why I was in Rhode Island this weekend, bringing the boat that I race on back to Jamestown Boatyard, where it's going to live for the winter as we get ready for our next Newport Bermuda race in June of 2026. That will be my third.
So how do you get into like competitive yacht racing, or it's like there's got to be like a path to that, but very foreign to anything that I've ever done. So what is the path where you found yourself racing boats?
It's foreign to most people. I think there's fewer people that have done some of the offshore racing than have summited a lot of the big mountains in the world. It's a pretty elite group of people that do the offshore stuff. In terms of regular racing, I'm fortunate to live near water, and was invited many years ago to join a little yacht club where I hadn't sailed. I learned as an adult, and you take it, kind of one sail at a time, one race at a time. And I've gone from little boats to slightly larger boats. And the way to do it is actually to crew for other people. So teamwork is a big part of sailboat racing. You can't do it alone unless you're in a dinghy or have a very complexly set up sailboat. If you're going to race, you're with a team. You have to communicate really clearly with one another. Everybody needs to know where you're going. And when you're offshore, you need to trust each other really deeply. So a lot of the things that are important to business are also important to sailboat racing. But I got into it by learning and studying. And I knew I was never going to be the strongest person on a boat. So I tried to be the smartest person on the boat, or one of them, in terms of racing rules and those types of things.
Very cool. So, okay, we can talk about business now, and we got that out of the way. So tell me about your chairs. Obviously, this isn't, you don't come out of college and say, yeah, I'm going to be a Vistage Chair. That's not typically what happens. Usually this is a second or third career for folks. What was your career story before you were a chair?
Awesome. Thanks for asking. This is, I'll refer to it as my third.
Okay.
I am actually a recovered accountant. I came out of university with a BS in accounting, and a couple of years later got an MBA in finance and marketing from Stern.
Which is a great school, by the way.
Yeah, well, and my undergrad was Penn State, which is also a great school. We're suffering a little bit in football right now, but we always come back.
There you go.
I loved my foundations in business that I achieved through my early career, and accounting, if you really think about it, it's the underlying building block of business. That's how we measure everything. If you're doing it well, right? If you want to grow. So having that foundational understanding and building on that through the early part of my career, I worked with a couple of multinational corporations. I started off in public accounting. I traveled internationally for that work. I really learned to listen. Actually, I'll give credit to time I spent 18 months in Tokyo where I had to
Oh,
ask a
wow.
lot of really challenging questions of my team to understand what was going on in the business. Because we were seeing some issues in the US and from the US, and I needed to figure out what was underneath those. So I think that's where I really started to hone my listening skills in business. And that led to my second career, which was coaching. I knew as a corporate finance professional, I wasn't going to be able to be a present parent as I wanted to. So I started to think about how I could pivot. And that's when I found coaching. And I was one of the first students in the New York University coaching program,
Oh,
and then
wow.
wound up teaching in that program for 12 years. So I spent, as I refer to it, as the second third of my career in that space of executive coaching and executive leadership and performance development through teaching and also my independent coaching and consulting practices. Um, Towards the end of that, as my son, I did wind up having a child, and I did actually wind up solo parenting much of that time. So having the flexibility of my own business was really helpful at that point.
Right.
I, as he was nearing to high school, moved back into organizations. I spent 4 years at Yale University at the School of Management, coaching MBA for executives and alumni of that university program. And then I went back into corporate for a little bit, working with senior partners with one of the large accounting firms, teaching them how to think more broadly, maybe than they had before. Not unlike what we're doing with our Vistage members.
Right. And I'd love to ask you, by the way, when I would love to hear your opinion on the contrast between working in corporate and working in academia. What's I would love to hear your perspective on what it's like bouncing between those worlds, which are very different.
They are. The currency is different. Uh, Power structures, though, understanding what they are, understanding how information flows, it
Right.
flows differently. That's the piece that people need to actually pay attention to. Um, you get compensated very differently in those two different spaces. I loved the work I did in academia because of the ripple effect. That's in fact one of the reasons that I'm so attracted to, and why I chose Vistage as my third of my career. When we are in those academic spaces, we have an opportunity to leave the world better than we found it, not just by what we do, but by how we actually interact with and lead others and help them to find their own wisdom and power. But they are. I love that you kind of pointed to that. They're very different. How you grow in the organizations is very different. And there's many similarities. They both tend to be very hierarchical, and as you know, Eric, companies are different. Different companies have
Oh, sure.
different ways of operating. But it is interesting and informative to me as a coach
Hmm.
to have spent time both as a consultant, as an accountant in different businesses, kind of really getting underneath and seeing what was going on, and as a coach and an advisor to people in many different businesses, to ask those questions because people operate within systems. And that's a big piece of what I taught when I was at NYU is really understanding the systems that we work within, because you can take something that worked really well for you in another organization, and it may not be the thing that's going to work for you here today.
Right.
So digging in and understanding the systems is great, and that's a great counsel to give folks before joining an organization or before trying something that they've tried before, is really understanding who are the stakeholders and is that going to work here today? And those are the types of conversations we have when we get into issue processing in Vistage groups, because those are the types of issues that CEOs have every single day.
Sure. Very cool. Did you have a preference for one or the other? If you had to go back to one of them, which would you choose?
Um, that's a great question. Uh, I think I choose both, which is why I chose Vistage.
That's
Right?
that
There's a
that
piece of
that feels
that.
like a cop out to me.
Oh, does it feel like a cop out?
A
If
little
money
bit.
were no object, I would teach all day long. I would teach, I would write, I would, hang out with really smart people and ideate. I actually spent 3 days last week in New York at the Columbia Coaches Conference because as a coach, I'm also still honing my craft there because I want to be as good as I can be for everybody else I'm actually working with as a chair and as a coach. But it really is the intersection of learning and helping people to grow that gets me excited, and that's where Vistage comes in because I'm actually able to do that kind of at scale through the people that I work with.
So how did you discover Vistage? How did you end up in Vistage? Had you had any experience with peer groups before?
Peer groups, yes, but Vistage, no. As I took a break after my last corporate role, I had stepped back and looked at my career and I said, I haven't actually taken a break, even when my son was born. I was launching a new business while he was, kind of taking naps. I didn't take a break for 40 years, and I took a little bit of a break, and I started, did some sailing, planted a perennial garden in my new home, moved my house, did a Bermuda race, and then when I kind of settled down, I was really looking around for what is the thing I want to do next. And I didn't know what Vistage was, but I saw the role listed on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn job hunting works for folks. And I called the recruiter and we had a conversation. And while I'm not, kind of who might be the traditional kind of CEO turned, kind of coach post retirement, the experience that I've had in business coaching senior leaders for as long as I have, which has now been almost 25 years, on top of the corporate experience,
Right.
it really positioned me well for the role. And it took me a little while to figure out exactly what Vistage is and what I want to build, how I want my team, my groups to form and synthesize. So that was a challenge for me because I hadn't been in one experientially. But now that I've got that, the group is starting to come together, and I'm really excited about the camaraderie that I'm seeing around the table, where they're reaching out and talking to each other even when I'm not around.
What with your group, and your background is definitely, unique. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of Vistage chairs that have coaching experience. You're right, there are a lot of chairs that were either entrepreneurs or top level executives, and this was after they had semi-retired. But you've also got a really unique perspective with your financial background. How has that informed how you lead your groups?
I love that you asked that. As I'm thinking about non-negotiables, right? It's easy for people to say, "Oh, I'm good," right? Like I don't have any big issues to process. I'm really looking at everyone and through coaching and before the meetings, really getting clear about what are the biggest challenges you have coming up, and how can I, as your chair and the group as your peer support you. A big piece of that is leaning into and leveraging the tools that Vistage offers. I could do what I'm doing by myself, right? A reason that I'm doing it with Vistage is because of the group, because of the leadership is a team sport, and I'm made smarter by Vistage and the people and the resources that Vistage offers. So I'm leaning hard into the brand new strategic planning module. We talked about that actually in the October meeting a couple of weeks ago. I'm leaning hard into the transaction center and encouraging all of my members to, as a baseline, have a conversation with the transaction concierge and go through and get their biz equity valuation so that we can all get smarter about our both where we are today and what's possible and where we'd like to go. That's also going to help the group as we do issue process different people's challenges to have an understanding that they might not have otherwise had if we didn't really kind of lean into those financial questions. But I definitely, as a foundational building block, really diving into leading indicators, lagging indicators, and how are we going to measure this? People might get tired of me asking how are we going to measure this, but that's we don't as the famous economist Deming said, we don't improve what we don't measure. So having that language is definitely an asset.
I think that that's very valuable, and it's interesting to me actually that there aren't more Vistage chairs that come from the financial side. They're uh, in my experience, it's not terribly common. I feel like we get a lot of CEOs, a lot of COOs, a lot of people that had entrepreneurial experience, a lot of people that had military experience. Um, but I find that some of the more rare ones are the folks that were either sales executives or finance executives in their past lives, and it's sort of interesting to me. I
I
don't know
love that
why
you're
that
pulling
is.
out all the ways I'm unique, Eric.
Well, hey, I'm here for you. Um, tell me about your group and tell me about the process of starting your group and that whole journey.
I'm excited that you asked about that. I smile when I think about my group. A few came together, kind of quickly and easily, and they're people I know from past lives. When I shared with them what I was doing, they basically raised their hands and said, me, I want in. That's a table I want to sit at. So that was a testament to kind of those relationships. It also speaks to as I see the importance of relationships. I'm really thoughtful about who's around the table. As we all know, there's non-compete around the table. No two people in the same industry. I'm being really thoughtful about who's there and how they might help, and I'm also really thoughtful about the fact that they need to be people that aren't just there for fun. They're going to actually do the work, high integrity and a growth mindset, and they're going to show up not just for their own growth, but for everybody else. And they're bringing different skill sets, different challenges, different life interests, because that perspective and that diversity is how we all kind of take new perspective on old problems and change. And the world is, as you're experiencing as well, is changing dramatically and drastically, and different things hit different people in different industries at different times.
Yep.
So having that thoughtfulness of people around the table that truly care about each other personally and professionally, and who will, with candor and generosity, share what they're seeing, holding us to accountability is really what I'm looking to build.
Chairs are, and it's really remarkable if you get to know different chairs or like I do, or if you get to experience different groups like I do through my Vistage speaking. It's remarkable how different groups and chairs are as you go. Certainly, there's a Vistage provides sort of the DNA,
Mhm.
but how that manifests itself can be very, very different as you go from group to group. Um, how would you characterize the culture that you've put together in your group? And how do you know when you're talking to somebody whether they're going to be a good fit?
Great questions. I mentioned it earlier. People around my table are thoughtful, and they care about themselves and their own growth and others. Um, and we don't have to sell people who are right for the group, right? You're going to see that there's value in showing up or there's not. And you're going to be willing to give it a try or you're not. And those folks who might be a little bit more hesitant to diving into the work, it may be that they're just not ready yet.
Right.
I'm taking a thoughtful approach. There's still seats around the table for my first group. I'm planning to have a second group, a second CE group, and really looking at that because chairs, even though you have an existing group, should always be thinking about what's coming next and who's coming next because there's always turnover by design. There should be
Yep.
when people sell businesses, retire, whatever it might be that they do that consolidate, in the industry, et cetera. I'm really looking for people who want to grow, and I'm smiling as I think of one member right now who um, is very clear in our monthly check-ins, personal, professional, and health. He said, "I'll never be a 10 because there's always room to get better." And it's not that we're not celebrating those successes, because I think that's super important. That's what gives us energy to take the next step. We are, though, really thoughtful about what we want to do, how we want to grow, and also not shy about sharing these challenges.
Right.
Folks that are wanting to be experts and help everyone else. I found that a lot when I was actually teaching coaches, right? There's a lot of people who think coaching is helping. Coaching is actually facilitating others' thinking so that they
Right.
can be independent and more successful on their own. You have to be willing to be vulnerable to
Well,
be in the group as well.
and it's fundamental to coaching and sharing
Hmm.
in that while you can, you know, show somebody uh, different ways of thinking or different ways of making decisions, or you can't do it for them.
No.
And that's really different about being a chair or being a coach versus even being a consultant or being an executive. There's this thing where it's like, but I'm not going, but I can't do it for you. Only you can make this happen.
Yeah. And to build on that, and if we delve into the neuroscience a little bit, if it's not their idea, they're not going to be attached to it. They're not going to be
Right.
excited about it. And further, if it's not a little bit of a stretch for them, it's not going to be as meaningful to them. So it has to be something that is their idea. And we, myself as a chair and the group around the table, can stretch them to go just a little bit farther than they would have gone if they had picked it on their own. And that's what's going to, kind of create a ripple effect of, kind of growth around the table. And the other thing I'd say that you've probably heard before, but super important to me, is if we get it right for that person, they're going to get it right for their family and for their teams and for their communities. And that's the other reason why Vistage was so attractive to me, is because where I've worked with global, multinational organizations, worked virtually with lots of different people. I'm working right now with people in my own community. I'm actually going out and having a happy hour with folks, getting to
Yep.
know them, talking about children, families, and having an impact in my local community is important to me. I am excited about helping to grow Connecticut.
How have you grown being at the table?
I am really appreciating new relationships, and really, every time I talk to a new member candidate or learn more about some of the challenges in my existing members' businesses, I'm learning and growing. Uh, how we synthesize everything that's happening in the world right now. A meeting I had earlier this week, a member is having a new business that he's forming, and how he does that is influenced by his prior experience, obviously, but there's a lot of new nuts and bolts he's got to kind of put together there. And I'm learning through my conversations with him what's important to that, and that's only going to make me smarter as a coach and a consultant to others when I'm asking them questions that might help surface their own blind spots.
Very cool. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, Cindy. This has been lovely. If folks want to get in touch with you, if they have questions about your group, if they have questions about how to get into competitive sailing, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
You can reach out to me through my Vistage website, LinkedIn, and my phone number is actually on my LinkedIn as well. So,
Very cool.
and it's easy if you put me into LinkedIn, Cindy Cornell, I'll be your top hit. And I'm also encouraging folks, as they see things that I might post. I try to post things that are useful to folks. Share with me what you like, what you're learning through that. Whether you're in the group or whether you're not, I'm putting information out into the world that I hope people will find useful, that will get them to think a little bit more deeply, and help them to be just a little bit better at personally and professionally themselves.
Well, thanks so much for being a great guest. It's been lovely talking to you, and thank you. This is great.
Thanks. And I am cheering you on in all you do. Thanks for sharing all you do about Vistage and Vistage sharing.
Appreciate it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer, while I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.